So Ryan Stevens, welcome to the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. We were just talking a minute ago. I was looking over your bio, and it's extensive, to say the least. Um, it says are you in Maine now? Is that where your farm is?
Yeah, me and my wife moved up here in February 2018 when we were getting ready to retire. We actually came up here on an internship program and worked with a friend that has a farm up here,
Mm.
and did some internship farming.
That's kind of that's not a crazy leap because you're not the first guy I've met that's left the military and went on to farming. I think it's something that people like doing because it's like, I don't know, you're out there working and you see the results of your work and stuff. I don't know what drew you to farming after having such an extensive career in the military.
Well, when me and my wife were getting ready to, we were going through, me and my wife actually, my wife was a Marine, and we went through our medical retirement board together. And at that time, you're kind of like, dang, we gotta find something to do that is going to be good for both of us, good for the family. At the time, we had one son. We have four kids now, but at the time, I had just had and we were like, well, we want to do something that's centered on family, and then also on getting closer to Christ, and also, having the ability, hey, if I don't, hey, I want to spend with the family, I can do that. And then me and Steph are kind of homebodies anyway, so she actually suggested, she's like, have you ever thought about farming? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be busy enough on the farm. And of course, she's like, obviously, I didn't grow up on a farm, but she did. She's from northern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So up in Amish country, And,
yeah, so you found out real quick that there is a lot of work to be doing around the farm.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like every day is something different. It's kind of like the military. For the most part, depending on your jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You have your core responsibilities. I have chores. I got to go make sure the chickens and the cattle are fed, and and those type things. But then there's other things that are on the exterior of farm operations that you're like, well, I don't really feel like putting fence posts in today, so I'm going to go up and work in the sugar bush or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always something to do. And and I think you hit it pretty hard on that first comment about, at the, you actually see what you've accomplished, and that's more satisfying than anything.
Yeah, for sure. I can see, it seems like most people that are the happiest in their jobs are people that have jobs where stuff changes every day. Like where it's like a different, like you go in and you do that, like you do a general job as in I go and farm. However, that means a lot. That means one day, you're out cutting down, you're clearing land. The next day you're taking care of animals. The next day, there's a lot to that. So it's like a constant change rather than something like super monotonous. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's certain aspects of the military that I miss.
For sure.
Obviously being around people, the different, good dudes that we work with, and those type of relationships that, you don't get it that close to people in the civilian sector where, you're relying on guys that, in the next day could be, you could be relying on them to save your life, or,
Mm-hmm.
or in those type of situations. But
yeah,
some of the jobs in the military were fun too. You get, there's some pretty cool stuff they get us to do, and it's like, oh, you're gonna pay me to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's nothing better than like a solid day at the OP, with your homies just dropping bombs and stuff. Like, I don't know, something that's like one of those TAD trips where it's super relaxed. It's not like relaxed, but it's like, there's not a lot of pressure from like it's a big exercise or something like that. You're just going out and getting some quals and stuff. That's the kind of stuff I miss from being in. It's that exciting stuff, and it does change a lot. And as a JTAC and someone that works in the fires community, you have the opportunity to work with a bunch of different people. You know, I've talked to people, like I've worked with infantry battalions. I've gone and worked with the squadrons and sat down and talked to them. And you get to meet all these different personalities from different parts of the military and the Marine Corps that maybe a lot of other people don't necessarily get. Now, when you joined, you started off at ANGLICO, which not too many people get that opportunity. So you came in. Did you come in as a fire support man?
No, I actually
or a radio operator.
I came in as a radio operator, and that's a funny story because, you know, up until I did a year in college down at the local university at UMF, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. The military wasn't really on my purview at all. I knew that what the teachers taught us in high school was you got to go to college to be successful, which is, you know, now we all know that's all bunk. But after my first year of college, I couldn't stay out of trouble. I was just hanging out with the wrong people, and you know, I got arrested trying to outrun the cops. You know, drunk and high, and tried to outrun them, and they eventually caught me. And at that time, I had enough stuff on my record where they were looking at, you know, at least a year in jail. That the initial charges anyway. Who knows what would happen once it went through court? But I was, at that point, I'm like, man, I need to find, you know. And at the time, the state cop that actually arrested me, he had done 4 years in the Marine Corps. So when he arrested me and he put me in his car, you know, he's like, I'm driving you down to the county jail. And I'm like, oh, great. And he's like, looking at my record, and he's like, hey man, he's like, you're headed one or two ways, man. And one of them could be, you know, jail for the rest of your life, you know, with this pathway. And that's when he kind of introduced me to the idea of going in the Marines. And it just so happened at that time, my cousin was a Marine Corps recruiter up in Maine, in my area. And he put me in open contract, which I didn't know at the time. I was actually looking at trying to do like a combat engineer type job where I could do, you know, electrical work or something. Like, I knew that at that point that I needed something like a trade. Cause I was just looking at, hey, I'll do my 4 years, I'll get out. And then at least, you know, on the backside, I'll have a tangible trade that I can use and come back and actually, you know, be a useful member of society. So
that's cold-blooded that your cousin put you in open contract, your own family.
It's awesome. Now, I mean, yeah, it wasn't fun when, you know, right after boot camp, when they start reading off your MOSs and, you know, my drill instructor knew the whole time that I was in open contract. I had no idea. So he kept coming up to me like, oh, you're going to be a combat photographer, blah, make your finger go like this. And I'm like, what the heck is this guy talking about? And then, you know, you get to MCT and they read it off. And I'm like, well, what the heck is that? And they're like, you're a radio operator. I'm like, nah, that sucks. You know?
That's not what I wanted.
No. And then, you know, you kind of roll with the punches after that. You know, I went to California and did time, you know, ANGLICO had just switched over. You know, they had, I think they were MLE or whatever. Yep. They were working straight Muse, you know. And then I think it was early 04 or 03, they switched back and stood back up to ANGLICO. So when I was at school, they had, I think they had like 20 slots for radio operators. It was nuts. Like I came during, like, it was basically a huge boot drop. So I came with like another, like, you know, 10 or 15 radio operators, and there was a whole mess of 08s that dropped around the same time that I ended up, you know, going up most of my career with.
Oh, so you guys were just plussing up ANGLICO when it came. So for those that don't know, MLE was the MEF liaison element, which MEF means Marine Expeditionary Force, so it's that Coast's command, that East Coast or West Coast command. And they, I can't remember when they did it, but they were like, hey, ANGLICO, there was like one of the commandants did not like ANGLICO for some reason and was one of the units that got nixed. and they didn't fully get rid of it, but it went from being a company-sized element of like 200 Marines and sailors down to like a platoon that worked in.
Yeah, they had I think they only had like 2 or 3 teams when I got there.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
So they were super small, and then the global war on terror ramped back up, and then the whole mission of Anglico is to provide fire support assets, communication assets, and stuff like that when we're working. Let's say we have British forces that are fighting next to us in the battle space right next to us, and our fire support is supporting them. Well, they can't really talk to our aircraft and our artillery, so we provide Anglico elements, Anglico teams to go with those guys and be those eyes and ears for them so they can utilize our assets. So you got there when that was ramping back up because the global war on terror looked like it was going to be, an extended thing. How was that? Was it weird, like showing up with a bunch of new guys, like?
I think really that would be the best time to show up as a new guy because, you're not like just one dude showing up to a unit that's getting ready to go to war,
That's so true.
They had to send us all through like, radio training for the specific radio systems that we were going to be on. And then, how Anglico does, they always cross train. So they send us through, the Anglico basic course and stuff like that. So yeah. I mean, out of all the times to get put there, probably the best time. And of course, we had money pouring in left and right for that mission. So we're getting, for the Marine Corps, we're getting pretty cool gear,
Yeah, for sure. So we have the same loadout. We have the same like gear package as like Recon does. I know when I was, at first Anglico, we had all the, tactical tailor packs and different mystery ranch and all that stuff. It was all kind of the same stuff. They do get a pretty good amount of stuff. Dude, you lucked out on your open contract heading to Anglico. I was open contract and became a fucking mechanic at maintenance battalion. Like two different worlds,
Yeah. At Cobb School, they were like, hey, we got all these billets. I think 8th Com was another big billet. And, of course, everybody's like, don't 8th Crime. Don't go there. And really what stood out is like one of my instructors was a recon dude.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of knew what that community was like. And he said, hey, if you want to jump or dive or do cool stuff, you're going to want to go in this to this unit. And I was like, man, I can barely swim, and I'm scared of heights, but that sounds a lot cooler than going to like 8th Crime. So
yeah, for sure.
I was like, yeah, might as well do that. And so
how long were you there before you guys got word that, hey, deployment's going to be coming down the pipeline? And then what was it like? Like, what was your training for that deployment like?
Man, I got there. Man, I think I got there July of 2004 or something. And we deployed, I think February of 2005 was my first deployment. So not very long. I think the first workup we went out to Cali, I can't even remember exactly where. And I got put on a team right away with the captain and the staff sergeant. And my first memory is the staff sergeant loading me down with too much gear and saying we're going to hump up this big hill, and I literally my back seized.
Really?
And I'm like, oh, I'm off to a great start. This is going to be awesome. Like my back's locked up. I can't even, and he's humping my gear because they compressed the disc in my back. So we didn't really. It was definitely a compressed timeline for a workup, and so we didn't obviously get the condition that we probably should have, but we went through a small shoot, and the typical go to the range type stuff and shoot, but I was a lost PFC at that point, so it's pretty blurry back then. I was just trying to keep my head above water.
Yeah, looking back, again, you've done a lot of stuff in your career now. Looking back, do you think it's a good idea to send Boot straight to a unit like Anglico, or do you think that they should get a little time at an Arty battalion or something like that and then go to Anglico?
Preferably, you'd probably want somebody that has a better baseline of knowledge before they come to a specialized unit like that. But again, I lucked out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an argument there like, hey, you can bring those guys in and mold them that way. I could see like if there was some way to stay at a unit like Anglico, like if you just hop between the Anglicos, I could see like keeping a guy there from the time he was a boot and, moves on up. I don't necessarily like having guys go straight there and then what really sucks is a lot of those guys leave Anglico and go to an artillery unit, and now they're sergeants or something like that, and they haven't really worked within a unit that is as strict on Marine Corps customs and courtesies and stuff. So now they were raised kind of on a looser. I don't know how you want to put it, but it just wasn't. At Anglico, it's way more focused on getting the job done and doing it right, rather than what do your camis look like and fucking greetings of the day, stupid shit.
No, you're right. Because my wife jokes with me. She's like, you never even spent like a real day in the Marine Corps, because I went to MARSOC and then on to other things, and like I'd go to like these like advanced course or academy for my PME schools, and I'd be like, what is this? Like, they want us to march around and all this crap, and it didn't set me up necessarily for success in like the professional Marine Corps, but I managed to navigate it.
Hey man, it works. Whatever works for you, right?
Yeah.
So when you guys were heading out to Iraq, what was your first mission, and what was your kind of role within the team on that first deployment?
Yeah, my first deployment, I was a straight up radio operator. We had a 3-man team. Initially, I think we went out with, we went to Al Assad, I think initially, and then we got, they were doing like initial push into hit at the time. I think we were with like, I can't remember the unit. It was a Texas infantry unit that we went into hit with. So that was like my first combat operation in Iraq. And, of course, I didn't know anything. I'm driving the Humvee in. We still had soft skin vehicles. Like, I'm driving on like 7 Bravos, man. Like, can't see anything. And the funny thing, like right before we got the warning order to go out, they're like, yeah, just make sure you stay in the tracks of the other guy. Mines. And I'm like, landmines? Jeez, dude. Like, we're driving the soft skin vehicle. I was like, well, we're going to be like, think missed, and it's gonna be my fault.
Yeah.
They're letting me drive this thing, but we got in there and we took over a couple buildings, and then we ended up setting up an OP, and I think what used to be like one of the colleges or one of the big universities in hit, and but other than that, once the initial push was in, we got, a couple RPG shot at us and stuff. And then it kind of settled down, and I was like, oh, okay, and then it, turned into, it was pretty boring. So I was like, oh, this is probably what combat is mostly like, long periods of boredom. So that lasted a month. That mission was a month. We were out there in hit, and then we retrograded, and we picked up the PSD mission for a 2-star general, Major General Johnson at the time, and then General Patton, and they were in command of at Fallujah. So at that point, it was pretty low key. We basically attached to the what were those guys? They were the Fast Company guys, I believe. Okay. That were tasked with the PSD security for the general. So basically, wherever the general wanted to go and he needed a convoy, our Anglico team would provide air support or whatever really that he needed. So it was actually a pretty good first deployment for me, being like, PSC know nothing. So it was good.
When you guys went into hit and you said you set up and stuff, were you guys building a forward operating base, a patrol base, or anything like that, or was it just a temporary spot that you would put your OPs up in while you were doing that mission?
Yeah, we were straight up in an OP the entire time. I think they were taking back like one of the train stations and then actually trying to hold presence in hit. But again, I didn't didn't really know when back my first couple like really deployments. I just didn't ask a lot of questions because I just kind of was like, I just want to make sure the deal works so I don't get beat over the head with a handset,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, new guy just doing his thing.
Yeah, just trying to survive, man. So I think they were just pushing back in to take back control of the city, but I could be wrong there.
When you do those, when you're doing the personal security detachment missions, the PSDs, did you ever find like? Well, I had someone else come on. I can't remember if it was. I think it was Benbow or one of the other guys that had come on and talked about it. They had done one, and they said like, one time the general wanted to pull over and get a watermelon at a local bazaar, and he's like, dude, it was so stupid. We're like, we shouldn't be doing this, but all right, let's do it. He wants to like interact with the local populace. And then down the road, they get ambushed because it gives them time to set up and do stuff like that. Did you ever feel like that was the case where you're having like dog and pony show stuff that's like putting people in unnecessary danger?
No, I think the only one mission I remember for that deployment is we did drive to Baghdad once in a sandstorm.
Yeah,
which, like could barely see in front of like over the front hood of the Humvee, and I'm like, well, this is awesome, It's like driving in a snowstorm, only you're breathing in dirt. So
yeah,
I think I remember. The one thing I remember about that deployment was for some reason, General Johnson must have liked me. I was the only Lance Corporal, I was the lowest ranking guy on the PSD. If he was doing any vehicle movements on base, he would request me to drive him. So I drove him a lot places, and it was kind of cool because I got to see. I mean, he would talk to me like I was a bro.
Oh, really?
And he would ask me questions about stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, dude. I've been in for 5 minutes. Why are you asking me? But I mean, he truly cared. And then like he would do nightly walks around base. He would go for a short walk, and he would always want to take me with him, and we would just talk. It was cool. And
that's cool. An interesting perspective of what's going on. Kind of see that higher level of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it was true mentorship. It was good. I appreciated it. And, on my first deployment, I was a newlywed because that's what you do before your first deployment. You get married, and even though your staff sergeant and captain say that's a bad idea, you do it anyway. And then your marriage falls apart on your first deployment. And but on the way out, he sat me down in his office, and he's like, "Hey, man, just remember to take care of your family and do what you have to do." He's like, "The Marine Corps will always be here for you when you figure it out." So, yeah, good advice.
That's good, man. That's good stuff. At the end of that deployment, when you get back to 2nd Anglico, how did it feel when you get back? Because did it feel like the unit had its like legs under it a little bit more? Like they had they're probably not getting massive boot drops still at the same time, right? They're just getting like backfills, like when guys would EAS or PCS.
Yeah, you had your standard. Now we got our legs under. We got movement. We got momentum. Because it was a pretty good deployment from what I remember. I don't think we lost any guys, but it was quick. We got back, and I think 7 months later we were back over there again. I mean, we had a quick turn.
Yeah, I saw that. I was looking. I'm looking at your bio, and I saw that the turnaround was real fast. I don't remember at this time. Was there any kind of attempt to have like a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 dwell ratio? Or because I know now, like for you to turn around and go back out on deployments, that you have to sign off on it. You have to be like, yeah, I'm waiving my dwell. Was that the case then, or was it like, no, man, we're back.
Yeah.
Take some time off, train up, and let's head back out.
Yeah, I don't even think we had the manpower. It wasn't. Yeah, there was no questions of if people want to stay back or not. It was like, hey, you guys are deploying. So I don't know if it was that deployment or the one after it, but like we had tons of schools lined up. I think at the time I was either going to slot it for airborne or ranger, and like halfway in, they're like, no, we're turning and deploying in 7 months. And so they cut a bunch of people's schools away. Like, so I don't know if it was actually planned.
Yeah.
So either maybe they were reorganizing the way that they were deploying people. I'm not sure what exactly was going on there, but we did definitely deploy early.
Was there anyone that was like, fuck, I don't want to do this? Or was it like, hey, let's go, was everybody pumped to go on another deployment?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the one thing I noticed at ANGLICO, because like the way ANGLICO is kind of conceptualized to me when I was at like radio school was that it's an elite unit in the Marine Corps. And I'm like, oh, that's good. Everybody will want to be in that unit, and we'll all be working towards the same mission. And then I think this happened just based on the fact that they had to get a bunch of bodies there. So we had, a good portion of guys that they either didn't really want to be in ANGLICO or they just weren't putting all their effort in it. So there were some guys that, we were trying to get rid of or rotate out or whatnot. And, that's when I kind of realized at ANGLICO is like, hey, what's my next step, into a unit that everybody in that unit wants to be there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my progression, just because that want to be really good at their job and want to go kill bad guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think the small teams, having small teams at ANGLICO and the unit itself being really small and really decentralized, because there's really only at most 4, maybe 6 active teams in each unit, and those teams are all on different rotations doing, either deployed or working up for a specific type of deployment or whatever they're doing. I think that on its own lends people to be better at their jobs, because you have, within the small team, you're like, look, dude, you're one of one or you're one of 2 guys. You can't not perform. And I think that kind of peer pressure of just being around people makes it a better unit. But you're right. Yeah, it would be good to have like some kind of way to, if we had, it was very rare. When I was at first ANGLICO, it was very rare we had anyone that was like, man, this dude's worthless. Like, what can we do with them? And usually if it was something like that, like it was someone that really just shouldn't be there, or, we would rotate them up to like the S3, or, there's always a FAP out, the, I don't know what it stands for, but where you have to go work at the gym for 6 months or some bullshit, they were like, all right, that guy's going to go do that. Like, if you don't want to be on the team, if you don't want to go out and do this stuff, then fine, go fucking hand out basketballs at the gym. We're going to go out and train and deploy. And, so I think they do their best, but yeah, it would be better if they could screen some of the dudes out of there, because ANGLICO is a non-special unit. They have specialized skills like JTACs and radio operators and stuff like that, but they're just your regular. They attach to anybody. They can attach to anybody. However, a lot of times they do attach to special operations units, and to try to justify like keeping a piece of shit on a team because one reason or another, I don't know. Sometimes they don't like to get rid of guys because it supposedly makes the command look bad. But it's like, you would rather, instead of looking bad by saying this guy is not going to cut it, you'd rather send them out when they're going to go support this SEAL team, or they're going to go support this, SF team. What if this dude shows his ass? It's like, it's kind of a weird environment there. So I know what you're saying. When you were getting ready for the second deployment, did you have a lot of lessons learned from your first one? Did you know what your mission was going to be? Was it going to be similar to the first deployment?
Yeah. So my second deployment, we went to Fallujah, and I was on a MTT out there, a military transition team, and we bounced around. We worked with a couple different SEAL teams on specific like raids and stuff that they were doing, and then we worked with a Marine infantry unit out. So basically, out in the city, they had some Iraqis that they were training up. So we would go out there and support those guys too. So it was that deployment is when I realized that there's more to the Marine Corps than just the Marine Corps. Like there's other units that provide other specialized skills, like working with the SEAL teams. I got to see that. how those guys operated, good or bad, and then, I got to work with another Marine grunt unit. Those guys were solid,
Yeah.
So,
But that right there, I mean, that right there is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. How you work with special operations on a deployment. Within one deployment, you worked with, your regular infantry dudes, you worked with special operations guys, and you worked with the foreign military. That's the cool thing about Anglico is that you do have the ability to do all that, and it's not even like they make it like you can do some, like it's so crazy that you could do something like that. They just go out and they're like, hey, you have to go do this mission, and you go do it, and you realize it's not really that hard to kind of liaise with these other units and stuff, as long as you have the skills that they need, right?
yeah. And I think us working with the SEALs on that deployment was like just really, I think it was personalities. One of our captains who, one of their officers or something. And so it was like a handshake, getting over there. And then, I think the big thing that we provided their team was actually the comm portion, because they still had like the old Pisky 5 radios, and they just weren't up to speed with like the 117s and some of the SAT technology that we had. And
That's
we went out on a mission. Yeah, no, and we went out on a mission with them, and they were like, "Oh, we can't get comm with higher. We're just gonna scrap the mission." And I'm like, "Hey, give me the freaks." And I just typed them in and put them up on our radio systems. And it's like, "Here you go, sir. Talk to them." And then we made it happen. So I think when on the teams, like the SEAL teams, even MARSOC, you got guys that specialize in a specific thing, which brings the team together. But I think at the time the SEALs just didn't have maybe that expertise with the radio systems. So
yeah. I've actually heard of. I think my team, after I left First Anglico, I know they went and supported a SEAL team in Iraq. I think though that it was the same kind of deal. Like there was a joint meeting somewhere, and it was like, "Hey, I need this kind of skill set. Do you have that?" And one of the Anglico captains just happened to be there, be like, "Hey, I got guys that can do that, and they have JTACs, radio operators. This I can send you all this package, in a 4-man team." And they're like, "Cool, let's do it," And that got them off ship and into Iraq with a SEAL team.
Yeah. No, it's all about relationships and network. And if I could sum up my whole career, it's being in the right place at the right time, networking with the right people, and some of it's luck, I guess. But
yeah,
timing's everything for that too. But
yeah, networking's huge for sure.
Yeah,
especially in our community, it's
deployment.
A small. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, that deployment was, it wasn't as kinetic, but we did a couple ops with the SEALs. They did one op that I remember that I was slated to go on the roof with them. They were setting in, a sniper hide, and they were like, "Well, we'll take a radio operator with us." And I was like, "Oh, great!" And they kicked me off the chalk and put, I think they had a chief warrant officer or something that wanted to go with them. And I was like, whatever, I'll just, I'll sit QRF on the truck. And they getting a grenade tossed on the roof, and the whole team got hit with grenades, and we ended up having to medevac them back. But that was kind of my first, I'm gunning in the QRF truck, and they had one of the guys that got hit with a grenade really bad, and he was on my feet, and they were working on him as we were going back to Charlie Med, and so like, wow, this can get real quick, and not to mention it was just a pen whip, and I would have been on that rooftop, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was looking after me that day.
Just a quick substitution, and it's like changes your whole trajectory.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's like anything. They inserted at night. They were doing tactically, from what I heard, everything correctly. And it was just somebody was in the right place at the right time and tossed a grenade on the roof,
Yeah.
So
I think we misjudged the basic neighborhood watch, that you have in some of these Middle Eastern countries. They're very good at knowing when someone's in their areas that's not from that area, and letting each other know about it.
Yeah, and they use dogs differently than we do. Their dogs are their, ADT system in most of those third world countries, like Afghanistan. Like some of the target offsets we'd have to do over there, you'd end up having to do, 10 to 15 click target offset just to get around some of these early warning systems that they had in place. And most of the time it was dogs or people sleeping on the roofs. So
yeah.
You'd either have to do a long target offset or you'd have to insert in, 5 to 10 hours before your objective time, to get around that stuff. So yeah, you definitely have to, there's some workarounds, but it definitely made missions harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything else from that second deployment that you want to get into before we move on?
No, nothing crazy on that deployment. No.
Yeah. Okay, so when you came back, it says that's when you got to actually finally go to your schools, huh? So they sent you to airborne school at 2nd Anglico?
Yeah, at the time we actually had pretty competitive system for getting actually picked to go to different schools. So we had to do like the airborne PFT. They probably still do that stuff now, but I think that's actually something that Gunny G did that it created a lot of unit cohesion because everybody was fighting for those school slots. So everybody had to be like every month you had to be at the top of the list because if a school slot came up, like that dude gets to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just fortunate enough to be the guy that month that actually could run, I guess, because usually I wasn't the fastest dude.
Yeah.
But no, airborne was fun. It was airborne was my first introduction to working with the Army, and I wasn't really prepared for that because I was a new sergeant when I went down there, and for the longest time I was like, who is this dude Joe, and why is he always screwed up? And I was like, why don't they fix him? And you know how it is. They call all the younger guys down in the Army Joe. But it was interesting to watch the way that like NCOs talk to officers, and then the younger enlisted would talk to officers, and you could see that, I was like, oh, okay, the Marine Corps, I think has this right, where if you're a PSC, you don't go to a captain and just straight talking to him. You use your chain of command. So I had some issues early on with, I had a lot of fire in my belly at that time. So I was running around correcting Army dudes, and it almost got me into trouble a little bit, but but the school was fun. I found out it does get cold in Georgia in December. Yeah. So
was it what you thought it'd be? A lot of people say they get there and they're like, man, that was almost the most annoying school I've ever been to, because they haven't changed anything since like the 40s.
Yeah. Once you go through it, you're like, oh, that could have been condensed down into a week. I guess I get the understanding of that why they do it, because they had literally kids that had just gone through like boot camp going there, and the running thing was if their young Joes got kicked out, they'd be like, "Oh, you're going to Korea," as they like shamed them as they were walking out, and I'm like, "What do you mean going to Korea?" They're like, "Oh, that's where they're getting stationed." I'm like, "Oh, dang, that sucks."
Yeah, you're going. What do they call it? You're going worldwide or something like that, is what they tell them.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
But and then you kind of see a different mentality with the Army guys, where if a lot of those guys, if they washed out, they didn't care, because they'd either get another chance at it or they didn't want to be there in the first place. Where I think the Marines had a mentality that, well, I have to complete this. There's a no fail, mindset that we have to complete these schools, so.
Yeah, it's much harder for Marines to get into a school like that. Not because there's not seats, because their classes are hundreds of people. But getting like the command to send somebody in like an Anglico or something like that. It's funny, in the Army, it's an entry-level school that a ton of people go to. Literally thousands of people every month, are in and out of going through these schools. But in the Marine Corps, it's like you have to like prove yourself in one way or another to get to go to one of these schools. So it seems like it's way more, it's a coveted thing to do. And you're right. Who would want to come back from that school and be like, I failed fucking airborne, or I failed, that a school that Army PFCs go through.
Yeah, and I mean at the time in ANGLICO, we were actually doing the jump mission, so I'm sure they're still doing it. But there was a chance that we could actually utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think it makes sense though? Do you think it makes sense to continue doing for like an ANGLICO unit to do like static line stuff? Why, if you're gonna get airborne, at least do the one that people are using and move over to the military free fall. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think they could just, if they would get like a MOA with like the Navy school and just send our guys to the Navy school and plus that up or something, where I think that the Navy school is only a week long or something.
I've heard that before too.
I think it's out your way too. I think it's out in California. But I think it just depends on what your mission is. If you're going to be jumping with the 82nd, you're probably going to need a static line qual. So I guess you would probably still need to be able to do static line.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess, So I haven't done static line jumping, and it doesn't appeal to me, and it doesn't seem very practical in 2022. But what do I know? You've also,
you could do double bag static line in a free fall setup too. So when I was at free fall school, that was one of the profiles that we did, where basically you stand at the ramp. You're hooked to the plane, and then you jump out and it pulls your bag. So it's basically, if you're under a full combat load, you're coming out stable, vice, in a free fall profile, and you're jumping out of the plane. Especially like if you're doing a team jump, you could get disoriented or not get stable. So it's a little bit better if you're full, got a full load.
Aren't you jumping for the double bag? Aren't you jumping and basically releasing like a drogue chute? That's what's stabilizing you, kind of something like that, or is it something different?
Yeah, I think that's what it pulls. Yeah.
Okay.
Out of the plane. Yeah, but I only did that at school, so I could speak to that specifically. Yeah.
And then following jump, you got to go to SERE. I know you can't get into the specifics of SERE, but how was it for you in general?
SERE was awesome. It was in the springtime, and it was, where they do the evasion portion was less than 30 minutes from my house growing up.
Oh.
So, So when we get up to the traded area, I'm like looking on a map, and I'm like, that's like this, because there's a pond near where the trading area is, and then there's a brook that comes out of it, and I'm like, I used to fish that brook when I was a kid, and my dad. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I can figure out how to E&E home from here.
That's funny.
Yeah, but no, SERE was a blast. Other than the last portion where they capture you, the evasion and survival portion's awesome.
Yeah. I've only heard good things. A lot of guys say it's like one of the best schools, if not the best school that they attended while they're in the military. Did your instructors know that you're from that area?
Yeah. See, that's where I should have kept my mouth shut. One of the lead instructors at the time was he basically grew up in the next to the town that I was from, and he was basically probably 15 years older than me. He was a chief at the time, and he knew some of the guys that I'd worked for growing up. And somebody had told me that, hey, Chief so-and-so, like, he's from our area. You should say hi to him while you're down there. So he was the lead instructor at the time. So like an idiot, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. You don't know me, but, I grew up like near you. And he's like, sweet. Well,
man.
They use that against me in the portion, but we chuckle about it now. But
That's funny. That's good stuff. Um, so the same year, well, actually following, the same year is when you went back to Iraq. And this time it says in your bio that you went as a team chief. So you've kind of moved up the billets here. You've moved from the lowly PFC radio operator up into the team chief position. Were you still a sergeant at the time?
Yeah, I actually did my my second and third deployment. I did as a team chief.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, and kind of weird because I was a radio operator. I don't think they had any other guys there that were still in the team chief billet, but I was fortunate enough to, I guess, Gunny G saw that I had leadership traits and that he felt comfortable with me being able to do the FO job too. But my third deployment, we had 2 young guys on the team. So we had a 4-man team. It was me, a captain, and then two lance corporals. And they were, I think you had one on. You had Jonathan Reed, I think, on.
Oh, yeah.
He was the FO on my team on my third deployment. That was his first deployment. So that was kind of cool. Really, as a team chief, you're just managing guys anyway. You're not, I'd still had Reed do all the FO stuff like he would normally do. Mm-hmm. So, but it was a leadership position. So just managing dudes. And, the good thing was I got to teach them all the radio stuff too.
So were you deploying as a firepower control team, or were you deploying as a SALT, your supporting arms liaison team, which for those that don't know, the SALT is made up of a couple of different firepower control teams? Oh, I think I may have lost you.
I got you back. You got me back?
Yeah, I got you. Okay. I don't know if you heard the question, but it was, so you said you deployed as a team chief in your second and third deployment. Were you deploying as a firepower control team, like the 4-man team or 3-man team, as you said, or was it the SALT, the supporting arms liaison team chief?
Yeah, all 3 of my deployments on ANGLICO, I was on the FIC teams. So as team chief, I was
gotcha.
FIC team chief for both. Yeah.
Okay, I misread that second one, thinking that you were the overall supporting arms liaison team chief. That makes sense.
Nope.
Makes sense.
Yeah, at the time, I think it was talked about, but there was another guy that he was a staff sergeant. He outranked me, and he was also a comm tech too. So they actually slid him over, took the SALT, and then I got to take another team out. So it actually lucked out. I'd rather have been on the team anyway. The SALT job's not always that glamorous because you're really managing dudes. So
yeah, I was gonna say, when you're talking about managing people, that's like when you move away from the firepower control. So again, for those people that may not be aware of how ANGLICO works, the SALT, the supporting arms liaison team, has a headquarters element, which is a handful of guys, 5 or 6 guys. And then you have 2 firepower control teams. Each one generally has 4 or 5 guys, a captain or a senior lieutenant, usually a captain, a senior radio operator or forward observer, and then a junior radio operator and junior forward observer. Kind of breaks down like that. Usually the firepower control teams are the guys that are getting detached out to units to go do work, provide fire support, provide comm. The headquarters element, the supporting arms liaison team headquarters element, will sometimes break off into their own team and do the same. But a lot of times you become like the team leader and the team chief are at the whatever main base that you're at, and you're scheduling your guys to go out and support different elements at different times for different missions and stuff like that. So it's definitely more fun to be on a firepower control team. It's less responsibility, but you still get to do all the cool stuff. When you guys were, so this is your third deployment. How had you, and this is, you had been at 2nd ANGLICO since they stood back up, and they're kind of, like we said before, kind of getting their legs underneath them. How had you seen the training kind of change over the last few years that you had been there? Was it could you see a noticeable shift in how you guys were training as teams?
Yeah, from that, on that right before that third deployment for our workups had kind of changed completely, where we're doing a lot of trips to different places. In a lot of team trip specific stuff, and at the time they were starting to let some of the enlisted become JTACs too, so that there's a lot of I think we had a team or two at the time that were the team leader was an enlisted guy. I think they do that now.
Yeah.
Solely too, right?
No, not. I mean, well, not at first ANGLICO. They weren't doing that. It was always a captain, usually an artillery officer or a pilot, teamed up with. Are you talking about on the firepower control team, or are you talking about at the SALT level?
Yeah, at the FIC level. Yeah.
No, yeah, we still had a captain or a captain, artillery officer, or a pilot, and they were the team JTAC, and then the senior guy was either a radio operator or forward observer, and they were always a JFO also.
Okay. Yeah. There was at least some talk about that where they were starting to. I don't know if that was just because the demand for JTACs was starting to rise, but they were starting to socialize, actually putting an enlisted guy as a team leader at the time. But our training was getting a lot better. Specifically, like, trying to remember some of the training exercises we did. We went out to the Chocolate Mountains, and there's some stuff that we'd nav in, nav out, and my funny story from the Chocolate Mountains was we were convoying over there, and they let me take the lead, and we had like 4 or 5 Suburbans, and they're all blackout Suburbans, and we're going down the interstate, and we were like late for a range time. So I was like, we'll get us there. So I was going like 90, 100 down the interstate trying to get to the range, and we get pulled over. And of course, everybody pulls over on the side of the road together, and the cop gets out, and he's got his gun drawn, and he comes up to the lead vehicle, and I roll the window down, and I'm like, "What's up, dude?" And he's like, "Oh, you scared the crap out of me. I thought you guys were cartel." And I'm like, "Nah, we're for some air, dude." And he's like, "Slow down and get out of here." And he let us go. But some of those training exercises are pretty cool. You go out on the OP and just control.
Yeah. Chocolate Mountains is a good spot. You can drop live ordnance out there. You got tons of space to do all kinds of cool stuff. Gila Bend was always a good spot heading out there.
Yeah, we went to Gila. Yeah, Gila was good. Chocolate Mountains was good.
Yeah. So when you guys went on this next deployment, you were doing military transition teams as well. So can you kind of describe that mission for people that may not know what that means, and how was that working with the Iraqis and stuff?
Yeah, it's basically the FID type mission that we were doing, and the SF guys do, for an internal defense where you're taking a partnered force, whether that's the Iraqi army, the Afghan army, and you are training them to task to go out and conduct a mission. And once they're trained up, you take them out with you and conduct operations. So the transition teams at the time for Iraq were kind of like a hodgepodge of Marines that they slapped together. So it was an interesting mix of personalities, to say the least. Mm-hmm. But you'd typically have like a infantry officer on the military transition team, and then a couple infantry guys. But the core of those just looking to get on a deployment, and they were needing hot bodies for those. So you get a lot of different dudes that had different skill sets, really.
Yeah. But you said real quick, the core of you cut out for a second. You said the core of those guys were just guys looking to get on deployments.
Yeah. From what I saw, that guys that had either missed the first half of Iraq that were just trying to get their deployment on, or,
the individual augments and stuff. I think when I was on my advisor team in 2013, it was kind of the same thing. It was a infantry officer in charge, a couple infantry officers there as team leaders, and then kind of heavy on the logistics and stuff like that, logistics and comm. Well, not really heavy on comm. There was only one radio operator, but we had one radio operator and one network administrator guy to go work with the Afghans. When you were working on these teams, were you guys like actively, like daily working with the Iraqis, or was it just kind of helping them along at this point? Like how long had they been having military trainers come in and work with them?
Yeah, I mean, my 2006 deployment, 2006 deployment, we worked with a transition team at Fallujah. So, probably before that, they had been doing transition teams. So here I am in 2008 doing kind of the same mission. We started in Diyala, and then they moved us up we started in Habbaniyah, which is that's right across from TQ to Khatam. And then they gave us a warrant order. They wanted us to plus up in Diyala. So they moved our whole transition team, and that, I think it was I want to say it was a battalion of Iraqis. It was pretty much, or a company, I can't remember. But we moved the whole company, battalion, whatever it was, all the way up to Diyala to plus up what was going on up there. And it was an Army AO, which, whatever, they do things different up there. But that's when, the IED threat was pretty high. And, a lot of our missions that we went on, we'd have route, those route clearance guys ahead of us. And I mean, we ID on those ops. And that's kind of when, you go into villages and they'd be completely empty and you're like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. One of the first mass casualties events we had was like that. It took us a couple hours to get into this village. We had a couple Humvee strikes or MRAP strikes from IEDs, and then we got into the village. It was pretty much completely empty, so we set up shop. And then one of the houses that the Iraqis decided to bed down in had a houseborne IED in it, and they touched it off. And I mean, I can't remember how many we ended up medevacing, but it was a lot, and that was, my first experience with a mass CAS. And it's looking back, it was prepared to come, on couple next deployments in special operations. And you saw people that, we're not under fire. I mean, it was a houseborne IED, but there's a lot of guys that are bleeding and injured. So now you have, a couple of women that are trying to assess these casualties and get them prioritized. Our team, me and the captain, were calling in the bird to get a medevac. I was setting up the HLZ and that with my guys. And, that's when you started to see that some people weren't made for it. They, some of the guys on the team were just like screaming, and it's like, hey, you're not providing anything, brother. You need to get over here. And so it definitely, the volume was starting to go up on the amount of strain that it put on people when stuff like that happened. And, that was one of the events that I remember from that deployment.
Yeah, the real becomes real, or the war becomes real quick,
Yeah, and what I've noticed throughout my career is usually the guy that talks the most is usually the one that's least prepared for it. So you never really know how people are going to react in those situations. You just hope that everybody's cross-trained enough that when you do get put into a situation like that you can handle it. And so, yeah, man, I guess until you're really tested, you never really know how you're going to react to a situation like that. I mean, you always train for it, but you never really know.
Yeah, I mean, and you can only induce so much stress in training because everybody knows, when you're in training that it's training, you can tap out or whatever, whatever it is, it's still training. And obviously you can't have actual people all fucked up and stuff. So it's kind of hard to, dude, I saw guys even in live tissue training. I remember the first time I did live tissue training, I was in the classroom for the TCCC, discussion portion going through. It was like the first 10 minutes of the first class. We're watching some slides and there was they were showing us pictures of IED, injuries from Iraq and stuff, some fresh ones. And one of the slides is pretty grotesque, I'll be honest. And what a lieutenant in our training group who was on another advisor team passed out during the slideshow. I was like, damn, dude. That's just a slide. We haven't even gone out and actually done anything yet, man. You gotta.
Haven't got it to live tissue yet,
Yeah. I was like, that's got to be bad as a lieutenant, passing out in front of all your dudes and something like that. But that's a reaction he obviously didn't plan for. I don't know how you can train that kind of reaction away other than being exposed to it more and more, which is not necessarily a good thing. Over time you get exposed to all these fucked up things all the time. It's obviously not good for your psyche. I don't know, man.
I think one thing that always saved me with a lot of my operations was the way that I visualize stuff prior to operations. So, you always do your checks prior to going out, and you always, you do your mission planning. But I think what separates some of the guys in special ops is visualizing your operation and going through every single scenario that you can go through that might happen, and working that through in your mind. And I mean, that always helped me because, you could plan for X, Y, and Z. But if you've actually run it through your mind of how you're going to address those problems when they come up, I think you're just, better prepared if it actually happens. Yeah,
for sure. That was kind of I've discussed it before on here. Like when I was when I was going through like TCP training, or even when I was already a JTAC and stuff like that, even if I was told like, hey, there's a shoot coming up on like Tuesday, there's no slots for you, but you can come up to the OP. That was one of those things where I always would come up to the OP just to listen to other guys go through different scenarios. Because in real world, when you're doing controls in the real world, there's things that you don't think of that could happen. Clouds come in, another aircraft shows up, there's obscuration on the battlefield, something like that. And I always wanted to be there to listen to other people work through some of their issues, so that if I ever kind of ran into that same thing, then I would kind of have an idea of how to address it. I think that's kind of the same thing. Do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes you glean the most from other people, and that's why, when you surround yourself with really good dudes, and that that you're not the best guy in the room, you're working to be better, but you're also like looking to those guys, like, how's he do it? Like, oh, he says it this way and does his, he says his 9-line this way, but at the back end, he does this, this, and this, which makes his flow better. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like that, I'm going to use that, And,
yeah. I think that's a good thing in the fire support community, where you're always like, you're not discouraged in asking why. It's always like, oh, why did you do that? And then when you hear why someone did it, you're like, okay, I get it. That's a new way of looking at it. That's a better way of doing it. Or, hey, that's a good idea, but here's a more, we're trying to shorten the kill chain as much as possible. Here's the quickest way to maybe solve that problem.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we were fortunate to have at ANGLICO. And then when I moved on to MARSOC, we had really good JTAC instructors. We had, Gunny G, and then we also had John Dillard, MARSOC, who, by far was probably one of the most experienced JTACs in the Marine Corps. And those guys teaching you and then going on the OP with you and just slamming you hard. And, you can induce quite a bit of stress on an OP, especially when, it's your check ride. Yeah. And you're like, I don't get to go down range if I don't get the check in the box from old, Rhino. And so that induces some stress. But, and I've seen guys that you said, no, you don't get the check, man. Like, you're not deploying. That's actually how I got on my last MARSOC deployment. One of our guys, they pulled his qual, and they were like,
damn,
hey dude, I know you just got back, but hey, you want to go to Cali and do a workup with those guys? And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
That's crazy, because it's crazy that someone got pulled. I mean, it's obviously that's the right thing to do, right? But it's crazy that someone is over in the MARSOC Fires platoon and they're still having issues, because you guys are getting the best training, and the dudes are screened to even come over there. So it's not like you're taking some scrub that just got done with TCP school and doesn't even know how to do like multiple sections or anything like that,
Well, I think, MARSOC Fires, when I slid over into MARSOC Fires just as they were standing that platoon up. So, we still had some of those same growing pains. We had guys that came over there that, maybe they finagled orders, but they weren't maybe the best fires that we could have had. And, at the time, we were sending guys out the door left. We were understaffed, and so we needed bodies. We were trying to make guys deploy that could at least get, maintain the currencies and the standard. But sometimes we had guys that just weren't quite there, and that we needed to make a hard decision that was, hey man, we can't send you downrange. So it did happen. It was very, I think I only saw one guy get pulled from a deployment, and then, with some of the stuff that I had happen to me, I actually had to go through the entire syllabus again to become a JTAC, because I had my qualification pulled and I got decertified as a JTAC.
Oh man,
on one of my deployments. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
It happens,
Well, at least at least you have the opportunity to come back and like, hey, it's not like, hey, you're not going on this deployment and we're kicking you out of the unit. It's like, hey, you're not going on this deployment, but we're going to help you bring your skill level up. You're still an asset.
I mean, they absolutely could have. I mean, they could have pulled my qual and then kicked me out of the unit. But unfortunately, they felt that I was trainable, and that when the mistake happened, and we can talk about that maybe the next podcast.
Okay.
It's also in my book. I write a whole chapter on the fratricide incidents that I caused while I was in Afghanistan in 2009, and it's a tragedy, but I learned from it. And then when I went and started working with the SEAL teams, that was one of our main teaching points that we would do with some of those SEALs is we'd go out to the range, and I would set up a danger close strafe with whatever asset that we had, whether it was an F-18, F-16, or whatever, all dry cast.
Mm-hmm.
But I would simulate that same incident with the strafe run, and with basically 30-degree off the nose from your position. So these guys are coming in danger close on you, and you're trying to assess the nose position on this aircraft while it's coming in to make sure that it's not pointed at your position, but it's pointed 50 meters away at the enemy. And, most people, you can't tell.
Yeah, it's like an impossible task.
Yeah.
So now that you say that, I think I know the incident that you're speaking about, and Rhino, actually, I sat through his fratricide class and all that, and we started doing the same thing at ANGLICO with having at the end of, like, if we go out to Gila Bend, and at the end of the training scenario, hey, everybody's Winchester, confirm Winchester. All right, now we're gonna do a run. Like you're saying, same kind of scenario. So I'll be interested. That's a good preview for people for the next episode.
And it's in my book too. So if you buy the book, you'll be able to read it in depth about it.
Let's back up to even going to MARSOC for you then, because you said now you're going there early on. Did it seem kind of like when you got to Second ANGLICO, where they're like rebuilding, or they're building up this? We're just bringing in bodies right now to kind of build up this platoon to actually make a platoon.
For ANGLICO or for MARSOC?
For MARSOC, because you said that when you got there, they were kind of building up the fires platoon at the time.
Yeah, no, we were. I mean, when I got there, I think it was July of 2008 or something. And I mean,
Hold on just a second. I lost you when you said you got there in July of 2008, and then it cut off.
Yeah, so I got to the fires platoon for MARSOC in July of 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time we only had maybe 3 or 4 people there in the fires platoon. So it was kind of like ANGLICO all over again. When I first got there, we're building from scratch, and MARSOC, they still had guys, and they still had guys at the battalion that were doing the JTAC role, that were actually attached to the battalion. But I think at that time they were getting ready to basically stand up a fires platoon, and then pull everybody back and kind of centralize it so they can actually get every guy trained correctly before they, task and send them out to a team. So it was a little disorganized there for a little while, but they definitely got it figured out now.
Yeah. And when you moved over there, did you request to go there? Were you recruited to go over there? Like, how did you find out about that position and that opening?
Yeah, at the time, it was right when we got back from my third deployment. I had a couple buddies that had orders to go over there, and I don't remember how I got orders over there, but somehow I finagled them over there. You know, I mean, they didn't. I think they had a billet for an 06 there for whatever reason, because I wasn't a JTAC at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got my JTAC call once I got over there. But yeah, I think it was a good deal handshake. It might have been Villette was over there at the time, or somebody that got me over there. But,
okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of strange. I mean, it would be less strange if you were a JTAC or an 0861, you know, on your way to become a JTAC. Bringing over an 0621 to fall into a fires position is probably not the normal route, right?
No, I mean, it wasn't, you know, like that was my whole career though. Like, people tell me you can't go do that. And I'm like, well, I think I can do that. I just got to figure out how to put that square peg in the round hole. Cause like on my third, MTT deployment there, I had a master guns that was on the MTT with us. And he was like a 30-year master guns, like just disgruntled, but he was an 06. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so he found out I was an 06, and he's like, this is what you have to do for your career. You got to do this, this, and this as a sergeant. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm going to get orders over to MARSOC. I'm going to become a JTAC, and I'm going to go work on the teams over there. And he's like, oh, you'll nuke your career. You'll never make staff sergeant. And I'm like, well, I never thought I'd make it to corporal. So I'm already way ahead, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of that in the Corps. You know, there's a lot of people that just say, hey, you can't do that. And,
mm-hmm.
you know, maybe they do that for a reason, because if you really want to do it, you're going to make it happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't always work out for everybody. You know, they're telling the cautionary tale because for a lot of people, you know, that kind of attempt is not going to work out. But I've said multiple times on here, you know, if you want to have a cool career, if you want to do like the fun stuff, you got to take charge of your own destiny. You got to make things happen. No one's just going to like say, hey man, we're sending you to this school because we just thought of you. No one's going to do that. Hey man, we're going to send you to this unit because, you know, we just thought of you. That may happen, but it's more likely that you need to go up and ask somebody like, hey, I want to go to this school. I want to go to this unit. Hey, you know, reach out to units and try to get like a by name request. You know, that happened to me one time. Doing something like that is, I don't know, it can make a huge difference in someone's career and like the different things they get to do if they just like, you know, make the attempt. I had a guy tell me one time, closed mouths don't get fed. And I'm like, you're right, man. Unless you ask for something, you know, I don't know that you need it. So it's one of those things you got to take charge of it. So that's really cool that you made it work out.
Yeah, squeaky wheel never gets the grease, right? You know, or always gets the grease.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, and that's how you get a lot of the schools is, you know, you got to put the effort in a lot of times to be qualified to go. But if you're not in there making it the schools, you won't go.
Yeah, ignore the haters for sure. Anyone that's just hating on you as they continue on their mundane career and you go out and get to do cool stuff, you know, fuck them.
Yeah.
You know, that's just is what it is. Now, when you moved over there, it says you went to SOTAC so you didn't go to EWTG PAC or EWTG LANT for TACP school, which is the Tactical Air Control Party, which is where most Marine Corps JTACs are made at. You went to the Air Force's Special Operations. What is it? Special Operations Terminal Attack Controller School. What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I don't know what TACP was like, so it was good. I mean, it's out in what is that? It's out in Yuma, so out in the desert. But no, it was good. It was hard. It was a hard school.
Yeah.
They didn't get as much air out there as probably TACP does. Like I wasn't a full called up JTAC when I left there. Mm-hmm. But I got to integrate. I mean, they had SF guys at the school. They had SOTACC Ps, CCT guys that were all going through the school. So you got to mix with those guys and kind of see, you know, how they did different things. Because a lot of those guys were in their pipeline already and and whatnot. But I wasn't allowed to go to TACP because I was an 06. So that was another thing. It's like, how do we get this guy called up if the Marine Corps said to this school because he's not an 08.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, SOTAC
again,
was always one. I remember hearing about it when it was like I was trying to get a screening for TACP school, and it was talked about you got, like you said, you got less live controls, and I think that's why initially, I don't know if it is now, but I know then when I was in still, it wasn't recognized by like the big Marine Corps. Like if you were a SOTAC qualified JTAC, you couldn't just come out to the fleet and start controlling. You'd have to get more training, but you could control for any special operations forces. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that was true the entire time that I was at MARSOC. I was, SOTAC, but the Marine Corps could care less.
That makes no sense.
But who cares? Like, at the time I'm with MARSOC, so I'm going to be controlling.
Yeah.
For the special ops guys, and I didn't think past MARSOC I had any chance of doing anything. I think MARSOC was like, I thought my end game. Like that's going to be pretty much it for me unless I lat move to 08. Initially, when I got to MARSOC, I put in a package to become a shooter, but at the time it was, they basically slapped it back in my face and said, no, we need JTACs. Like we're not taking anybody that has a JTAC qual. So we had a couple other guys like my buddy Dennis Kansler that ended up getting killed in Afghanistan. Me and him put a package in, and then my other buddy Salisbury, who is back at ANGLICO now. But yeah, so I mean, there was an attempt to I was like, I got to do something else because I can't ride this 06 train much longer as a JTAC without getting put back to like 8th crime,
Oh man, filling out
and I'd be
record
really
jackets.
lost. Yeah,
You sit in a really comm cage trying to sort through all the SL3 gear. How many handsets we got? 50. Count them out. Yeah. Man, that sounds miserable, doesn't it?
No.
When you got over there, so when you got to the fires platoon, how long were you there before you went to SOTAC? Were you there for a little bit before you went to SOTAC?
Oh, man. If I remember correctly, what did I get there? Man, I got there, I think, July of 08, and then I think I got certified as a JTAC in October. So I wasn't there very long, but yeah, I got to school pretty quick.
And did you roll right into a team following, your certification?
Yeah, I rolled right to a team. Actually, I rolled to... It was basically the second Fox company. So I think you interviewed Gavin. Was it Fred?
Yeah, Fred Galvin.
Galvin, yeah. He was the first Fox company that went over, and we were the second that went over. So I got attached to 8212 as their JTAC, and they were pretty much halfway through their workup already. So I fell in on a team that was like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it did suck because I think initially when I fell in on the workup, I actually fell in on 8213, and then they moved me halfway through the workup to 8212 because one of their shooters became a JTAC. So they said, we'll take him, and you can go to 8212 who doesn't have a JTAC. So I ended up going to that team, building rapport, and then getting bumped to another team within the company. So that was fun. But I mean, after you baptism under fire with those guys a couple times and they see you do work, they trust you. So
yeah, it's one of those show up, put your head down, and just do your job and be good at it kind of deals.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, guys were all a lot of the initial guys at MARSOC were all prior old force dudes that, I mean, they'd been there and done that,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so it's time for you to earn your spot there. Yeah. Do you feel like at this point, were you ready to undertake the task that was being given to you? Because you had done 3 deployments with ANGLICO. You weren't a JTAC on any of them, but you understand the fires piece. After being at ANGLICO for a while, you're just going to get the fires piece. After having done these 3 deployments, now you've done SOTAC, you've done SERE, you've done JUMP, you've done all these other schools and stuff, and now you're at the fires platoon attaching to a team. Did you feel like you were ready for that?
Yeah, I thought I was ready at the time, but I was still young. In Iraq, we got into a couple firefights. We got shot at, blown up. but I had never been in like sustained combat where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to make it. So honestly, when I look back, I think the Lord prepared me for what was to come on my MARSOC deployments, because it was kind of a progression up to it, where I wasn't just like, as a Lance Corporal, thrown into the Battle of Fallujah when they were going door to door in Fallujah. Like, I don't think I would have done that great in that situation, but for whatever reason, he prepared me for what was to come by that progression. So I felt I was ready, but again, I wanted to be in combat. I wanted to go shoot dudes in the face and drop bombs on their heads. I didn't realize that sometimes when you ask for that, you'll get that delivered to you.
Yeah.
So I got it a little bit worse than what I asked for.
Yeah.
So.
That's something I always tell people too. It's like, careful what you ask for, man. You might just get that. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
And someone like you will know, like, having been in sustained firefights and stuff like that, sounds cool when you haven't done it, or you see it in a movie or whatever. And there's moments of it where it is cool, but there's a lot of moments where you're like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, man, I hope I don't fucking die right now. Like,
Yeah, I had an instance like we were getting ready. I was getting ready to drop on some dudes in Afghanistan, and I was standing next to my captain. We were like in between two walls, and we're just standing there. I'm like, the plane's getting ready to come in, and then we look at each other and we're like, dude, we shouldn't be standing here. We're like in an alleyway, and right as we looked at each other and said we shouldn't be standing here, we got lit up by a machine gun.
Oh man!
And of course, when you get shot at, you always lose your footing. So both of us like slipped and fell on our faces and somehow didn't get shot. But it's times like that. It's like it can change in an instant. And, another instance, like we had pursued these guys on motorcycles, and on that same deployment, we pretty much rode around the whole valley in four-wheelers and ATVs and dirt bikes, because that's, the only mobility that we could have in those, rough mountain terrain. And we rolled up on these guys, and we were pursuing them. They had, a couple guys on motorcycles that were armed, and, we basically were terrain feature on these guys. And then, we got a jump on them and came up on them, and we ended up shooting a couple dudes off their motorcycles. And one of the guys ran over the hill and hid. Well, little did we know they had an ambush set up for us with a machine gun. So I run down, I got a grenade out. I'm going to throw this grenade at this guy that ran down over the hill, and I get lit up with a machine gun. So now I have a grenade in my hand with a pin pulled, and I have, rounds exploding next to me. And I'm like, dang, dude, this sucks. So I'm running the other way uphill, trying to get away from this. Like, yeah, it could change real quick. So
yeah, it's a very fluid kind of situation, huh?
Yeah, they're funny stories now. You're like, I almost threw the grenade, and then 1 second later, but
damn, man.
I don't know.
Yeah. When you were on this first team, you were still a sergeant, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Did you have issues? So for people that may not know, like a JTAC's just not out dropping bombs willy-nilly. You're still getting approval from whoever the ground force commander is. And for you, I'm assuming you have to go through your team leader and stuff like that. Did you find it to be hard as a sergeant to go up and talk to your team leader, or did they take you seriously as a, even because you're a sergeant? I don't know what the average age or rank was on your team, but.
Yeah, so our team leader was a captain. And then our team chief at the time I think he was a gunny, but I think he picked up master sergeant on that deployment. But he was like a Viking, so he was intimidating. Our team leader, we had a great relationship. I'd go up and just talk to him like a bro. And towards the end of the deployment, like before I even asked, I would already know what he's going to approve. And I would just say, hey, you want me to get it done? Like, you want me to drop the buildings? Yeah, make it happen. Like, at that point, you're just so, you're of one mind because you guys, you've worked together for so long. Now, I didn't really have the rank issue, but, there's definitely some personalities you kind of butt heads with sometimes on the team, but
that's always going to happen.
That's with any team.
It's crazy because, as a sergeant, that's like, for those that don't know, that's like the junior rank to become a JTAC. And so what are most CSOs? Most CSOs are at least a sergeant, right? If not staff sergeant?
Yeah. I think at the time, most of them, we had a lot of sergeants, a lot of staff sergeants, and a couple gunnies.
It's crazy.
I think we had...
Go ahead.
Master sergeants on the team, but they picked up during the deployment.
It's crazy that you, as a sergeant, you're one of the lowest ranking guys on the team, but you also have one of the heaviest amounts of responsibility on your shoulders to drop bombs, in the right place at the right time, right ordnance and stuff like that. How did you let's talk through, I know you have a hard time that you got to stop, so let's kind of talk through the difficulties of, the pressure of the job itself. And then if you want to give us a little bit about your book, the title, when it's coming out, or it's already out actually, if you want to, where people could purchase it and stuff like that, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So, man, the rank thing, I never really appreciated it. Like, even in ANGLICO, like, rank never really meant anything to me. I always looked at, what does that dude provide? Does he know his job? Mm-hmm. How does he carry himself? Is he a leader? So I think that helped when I transitioned over into special ops, because special ops is more of hey, we all have a job on the team. We all have to be proficient, and there's really no rank, So that transition it wasn't a big deal. And I didn't see that guys on the team treated me any different because of my rank. I was actually fortunate on that deployment. We had we had one other JTAC that once we got out there, we had Air Force, they're called SOTACC Ps. I don't know if you've worked with those guys before. Mm-hmm. That was attached to us. And fortunately, the guy was a prior recon dude that went over to the Air Force and became a SOTACC P. So I got to work under him too. Like, we would basically, so on that 09 deployment, we were teamed up. It was our MSOT, so MSOT 8212, and then we were at the same location as an ODA 7326, so a 7th group ODA or SF group. Basically, that came about after the first Fox Company deployment. We were basically getting babysat on that deployment for the stuff that happened before. Which it actually worked out really good because the ODA guys were awesome. The 7th group guys were awesome. It basically turned into one team. We just combined two teams together. And on that deployment, we had the Commando mission. So we were doing, working with the commandos, the Afghan commandos, and doing, high value target raids. We were working with, we also worked with the Department of State and the DEA on that deployment. We did a lot of basically drug raids where we were targeting a lot of the high level drug guys in certain areas, and then also we were targeting like big bazaars that were basically their main job in that bazaar was trafficking in drugs. And then one of the missions that we were actually on with I don't know if you heard about the DEA Fast Company agents that were killed in Afghanistan in a helicopter crash.
No.
Well, the only 3 guys that are actually killed over there, that was the mission that I was on. One of our 160th helos crashed on exfil, and that we lost 2 ODA guys and 3 of the DEA Fast Company agents in the crash. But those were some of the types of missions we were doing. And then we were also doing like long range reconnaissance missions too. So we would basically say, hey, we're going to go out to the Turkmenistan border. It's going to be a 3-5 day op. We'd pack up all the trucks and take our Afghans with us and just kind of drive from village to village like a bunch of, wandering salesmen.
Yeah.
And kind of just see the atmospherics out there. And it was kind of cool because, you'd see like the coochie camps traveling. These guys, we'd go and talk to them with our interpreters. And like literally these guys are like, don't know what country they're in, and they think we're like the Russian or, you know, from space, because they hadn't seen people dressed like us and ever.
Yeah.
And even some of the villages out there, they thought we were Russian because they hadn't seen like a military force presence in that village since the 80s. So it was kind of cool.
That's one of those situations. That's one of those situations where it's it kind of brings to reality like the ridiculousness of some of the stuff in the United States. They think that everyone's so worried about this thing or that thing, and it's like, bro, there's places in the world where they don't even know what's going on 5 miles away from their own village. You know, they're so into their own little spot, and middle of nowhere. There's no internet. You know, internet doesn't exist out there. There's no electronics, and you know, they're living a very agrarian or nomadic lifestyle, and it's like,
yeah, and basics. They don't even have basic medical. Like some of the stuff we were doing out there, we'd go do MedCaps, which is just, you know, a medical clinic that we'd set up, and then, you know, our special ops corpsmen guys, the SARCs, the Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsmen, they would basically, you know, say, hey to the villagers, leaders, like, send your guys that are sick, and we would spend a morning helping those guys out and fixing their problem. A lot of it came down to, hey, you kind of need to drink water. I don't know if you guys know this, but you got to have, like, you can't drink 10 glasses of chai tea with sugar in it. You got to have some water with it.
Yeah.
But we saw some deformities though too. So, I mean, there was definitely some issues that we couldn't fix, which was sad. But no, it was cool. It was cool seeing that type, and then just how other people live.
It's just a whole nother world, man. That's just like a whole nother, like, it's hard to even imagine that still exists in 2022. But until you've seen something like that with your own eyes.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is, like, now, like, after I got retired from the military, I kind of want to get back to the simple life. That was one of the key reasons me and my wife moved back to Maine to farm, you know, to be close to family, to raise our family in like a farm lifestyle, and, you know, so we could be closer to Christ. So we're kind of getting back there one way or the other. You know, we're going back to the agrarian lifestyle too, where it's, you know, it's slow going, you know, but it's less stressful, and
yeah,
you know, it works for us.
Do you sell stuff from your farm? I mean, I don't know what all you farm. Can people reach out and buy stuff from you, or?
Yeah, my farm is a full farm. Our website is fullarmorfarm.com. We sell, we raise Scottish Highland beef cattle, which is, I don't know if you've probably seen pictures of the long-haired, hairy ones with horns.
Okay.
They're, you know, originally from the Scottish Highlands, but they're very hardy cow, and it's a lean beef. So it's a good grower for this area because of the weather. Mm-hmm. And then we also do maple syrup and birch syrup, and we also do apple cider, seasonal vegetables, stuff like that. So, and then, you know, and then I also wrote a book recently. It's called Out of the Darkness: How a Special Operations Marine Found the Light, and it's basically my testimony, going a little bit into my childhood, and then mostly talks about my military experience through, you know, my 10 combat deployments, and then basically my path to Christ through some of the traumas that I experienced, and basically dealing with alcoholism, drug addiction, and you know, kind of dealing with PTSD, and how, you know, basically how I left it at the foot of the cross, and through Christ, he helped heal me. And this book is just basically tells about that, and some of the other stuff that I talk about in the book relates to PTSD, and then like how suicide is prevalent in the military. One of my chapters is basically dedicated to a buddy that we lost. He was an ANGLICO guy and a MARSOC guy, Chris Goss, and he had a twin brother named Mike Goski, and they both committed suicide. They were they were twins, but they were identical twins. So they, it's kind of
crazy.
so one came out and the other was holding its leg when it came out, but so they were really close. And then it talks about how MARSOC failed Chris and how that led to him committing suicide. And hopefully that's some stuff that we can fix for the future. But I talk about that, and basically, I'm laying it all on the table in this book because I want people to know that some of the stuff that we go through in the military, but also that we're not victims. So don't treat us like victims. And this stuff is hard to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. And if we talk about it, and then, depending on how you want to heal yourself, I healed through the salvation in Christ, and all those burdens were taken off me. So, and in that book, I talk about all the stuff that I was going through, but when I gave myself to Christ, how he healed me. So.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's awesome that you you found an outlet, and you're able to share these stories, not only obviously here on the podcast, but through your book, and you can go into detail and touch on things that you found important over the years of being in the military and stuff, and honor these guys that you served with, and that did amazing things that people will never even know, unless you were there. Like, there's so many stories that I know, people that were in combat arms a lot of times know that no one else will ever know about some of those stories unless they were there to see it themselves, or how amazing someone acted in a moment of crisis and stuff like that. Where can people pick up your book at?
Yeah, so it's available on eBay. You can search for it on eBay, and then also my farm website, fullarmorfarm.com. It's for sale. And just so you guys know, I have on the website, I have the regular book, which is a hard copy, and then I also have the autographed version. The autographed version, if you buy that pays for me to give another book to somebody else that I'm trying to, that I think could, benefit from reading my story.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. You want to throw out your social media also, if you're on Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, I'm not on Instagram. The only social media I'm on is Gab Social, and I'm Full Armor Farm on Gab Social.
That's right. I will have to download the Gab Social logo to put that up on the screen for while the podcast is playing. I signed up for a Gab account.
You should really look at getting it, because you could start hanging your videos. Gab Social has Gab TV too, so you could start hanging your videos on there. And with the way censorship is right now, the owner of Gab, he's a Christian man, but he based his website or his social media platform off. If you can say it via the First Amendment, if it's legal to say it in the First Amendment, you can say it on Gab.
Yeah.
So you're going to get some people saying some crazy stuff on there, but you're never going to have to worry about being censored unless you're, threatening somebody's life or something crazy like that.
Yeah. It's another one of those controversial websites where people make it out to be something that it's not. I've heard everyone say that I've heard people say that the owner is like a Nazi, or that it's like it's a website for like extreme right-wing opinions. And it's like, dude, no, it's just, it's there. It's in a place for people to just have an opinion. It's kind of like, so I signed up for an account there just to lock in the name. That one, what was the other one? There's Gitter just came out, which is another one that's supposed to be like that. And there was another.
Yeah, Gitter is on the same AWS network as like Parler was, and all those other ones. So yeah, and that's what got me over to Gab, because when Parler shut down, that was the only social media I had at the time. So I just jumped over to Gab, and a lot of these social media companies are all running off the backbone of Amazon and some of these platforms that
Who can shut them off at any time? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, how you know is if their app is in the app store on like your Apple phone or your Android, then they have the ability to censor you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I remember reading in some of the newsletters that the owner of Gab, or the CEO, the founder, he's basically started his own like web service so that he can't be shut down. Like he's part of, he's like directly connected to the internet rather than through a service to be connected to the internet.
He owns all his own infrastructure. So he owns his servers, he maintains them. He's built, now he has Gab Pay, which is like supposed to take, basically
like
replace PayPal. Yeah. So he's building it. It's just, you know, like anything, it takes a while to build that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, a lot of the other social media companies are doing him a favor because when they censor dudes, they come over to Gab. So.
Yeah, another one, Aaron Brentfast and Cody, they were saying that they're on a app called Rockfish or Rockfin.
Yeah,
Rockfin.
That's pretty good platform too. Yeah, I was on his team in 2012. He's a good dude.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I know, like I said, I know you had a hard time, and we're coming up on that, so we'll wrap it up. Everyone, make sure to go check out his website, check out his book. I will have a thank you. I know you said you're sending me a copy. I appreciate that. I'll take a look. I'll read through that before our next interview, so I could talk more on the book and everything. For everyone that's looking to support the site, make sure to hit me up. jkramergraphics.com is my website. Anglico shop also from all my Anglico homies. Anglicoshop.com. You can check that out. My Instagram is @formeractionguys, @jkramergraphics, both of those. And yeah, man, that's it. Again, thanks for coming on, Ryan.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it. And just so you guys know, like the book that I wrote is all self-published. So we actually it was printed and all the materials were made in the U.S. and it was actually printed in Farmington, Maine, which is 20 minutes from my house. So
that's awesome.
You know, we did everything we could to keep everything USA made on this book, and you know, self-published. So
that's sick, dude. That's even better. You know, even more reason to buy it.
Yeah, you should have your book today. It's almost there.
Oh, sick, sweet. I'll start reading it today, man. So, and then like I said, we'll set something up in a couple weeks.
All right, sounds good, brother. Take care.
Hey, you too.